Hello everyone, welcome to the next session on ABAP on HANA. In the last class, we discussed about SQL Script. We have gone inside deep dive inside SQL Script with respect to the declare statement, creating procedures, looked at the imperative logic using SQL Script using if condition, while loop, do loop, for loop. We also talked about exception handling, how to do exception handling in Murphy's Law in case of SQL Script. And then we also discussed about cursors in basic. Towards the end of the class, I was unable to show you the output from the cursor. And there was also one more open item on my name was how to export the count of records from a database table. So these are all the two open points, and then the cursor, which I have to now start with. We also looked at the table type concept in ABAP on HANA in the last session. So today's session, we will look into the array concept in detail. We will talk about how to convert an array to a table. We will also discuss about cursors in SQL script, and then we will move on to creating a table type and a particular procedure with imperative logic. So you remember that there are two types of logic which we have typically when it comes to SQL script. One is declarative logic, which is pure data flow. Another is imperative logic, which we are currently learning with different ifs and buts. So we will be looking at declarative logic in detail, and then finally we will move to our OIA scenario and write a SQL script which is which will help you to understand the true use case of our SQL script programming. Okay, so let's get started. The first, let's move on to the doubt which we had in the last class, how to get count of a particular table out of a SQL procedure. So as you all know, there is a count function when it comes to a database table. We can just do a count star on the database table name, and it just gives you the number of records available in the table. But how to export this value out of procedure? This is what I was unable to show you because I didn't want it to try different variety of code in front of you guys. So I did it offline and I was successfully able to do it in just 2 minutes. So let's get started with that. I'll just quickly create a procedure. So I say create procedure, and I say get count, and then I will just make it an output parameter with say counter, and it's gonna be an integer value. Okay, so that's what I will do it here. And then I say as begin our procedure, end of the procedure. So we typically do compile this piece of code immediately and see if it works fine. So I execute it and let's see what happens. You can see it's created my procedure, but though it's an empty procedure, it's not going to do anything as such. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to drop the procedure first, and I'm going to build it on top of it. So let's drop and recreate. So what you're going to do now is just send this count as output from the procedure. So what you will do is, let's say select count star from my SAP A4H schema snwd underscore BPA table. And what you can do now is in this output variable, you can simply assign do an into and your output variable name. That's it. It will give you the count of your database table. So just that into operator is what we are using here to get the count. There is also another technique which I will show you in a minute. So first let's try this. I execute it. It creates my procedure, and then let me just execute this over here and say call procedure name question mark to see the output in the console. Yeah, so let's do that, execute it, and voila, you can see it's giving me the count of records in my database table. That's how you can export the count from a database from a procedure available. Let me also try to see if I can increase the font of my code. So I can just go to editor. So general setting, appearance, colors and fonts, and just see if I can increase the code SAP HANA, and then here SQL log front end query result editor font. Let's go for edit and see if we can change the font size so that you go all of you can see things in a better font, at least in some bigger way. Click on OK, apply. It didn't change my font actually. What about else, something else? If that changes, go back, make it 14, apply. That also didn't change. SQL log edit default, make it 14. Okay, apply. Yes, that changes my font, and now I can see it little bigger. That should be helpful for you guys to now visualize the code what I'm writing. So what we are also doing as a general practice, we are putting all this code in a notepad file, and I will share that notepad file with you so you all can try this piece of code in your HANA SQL console directly. So I had created a new notepad file. So what is our first example for the day? Example number 1 is to export the number of records from database table. Now, what is the alternate syntax here? You don't need to use into, you can also use as. And as this, and this matches with your name of the output parameter, this is also going to work and return the same result. There is no difference. You can come back and re-execute. You're going to see the count. Oh, oops, it's not giving the count actually. There is some problem. It's not working. We have to use into only. But actually I have seen in HANA 2.0 it works. If you just do an as and your variable name, it typically works. Okay, let me just try with our smiley operator. I don't think so it will even work. It won't even, it will give me a compilation error. Yes, and typically it should work with HANA 2.0. I've tested, it was working actually with HANA 2.0. So if you just do a get count and return the value as output, it also gives you the count, but it's not working here with 1.0. I have observed it's not working here with 1.0. So just use into, that's better, and this will give you definitely the count as an output. There is a question here in the chat window from Weber. Weber, please don't put your questions in the private mode. Please put it in public mode so everybody can see this. So he's saying, what about if I want to change my table name every time? I don't want uh, a count from always BPA table. Okay. So basically, suppose let's say that you want to create a reusable function where you want to pump in the table name, and then you're gonna report out or extract out the value from the table. So that should also be possible. So what you will typically do for that reason is create an input parameter and just say table name and make it varchar, let's say 80 characters, including the schema name dot table name. That's what is going to be the input value. So that is an import parameter now. So I will still say execute count star from this, but from table. And this is going to be my now table name. But remember, it's not going to work if I just directly use here the table name in SQL query, because this becomes a dynamic SQL clause. Okay. And dynamic SQL clause are not supported with this way. You can see scalar type not allowed in query. So if you want to execute or prepare any dynamic SQL query statements, you have to use another syntax in SQL called execute immediate. Okay, this is what is the syntax to call a dynamic SQL statement. This is again not recommended by SAP because your SQL script engine cannot truly optimize these statements. Okay, so you should avoid them, but still if you just want to do it by any chance, if you don't have any option at all, you can definitely go ahead and do this. So you can say select count star from your database table name. So you can just chain it your database table name. So just block it into a double quote and then concatenate your table name. And that's it. This becomes a dynamic SQL clause, and by default your procedure output parameter, you don't need an output parameter here. By default your procedure output is going to give you the count. Okay, so let's execute this. It recreated the procedure. I will go back and I just have to supply the table name. So I put a question mark here. So it prompts me something to provide my table name. So I'm going to say execute, and I can see it's prompting me for my parameter value, and I just say SAP A4H dot SNWD underscore sales order table, let's say, and execute. Oops, it's giving me a syntax error somewhere in line number 1, column 17. Okay, there is some problem here. So did we do it chaining correctly? So select count star, and I can just say as CNT. Also I can do it from this table, and then this is my table name parameter which I used it. This should work fine. Let me execute again. So I have put an as alias. So this comes as an output by default. As I have forgot to put, I put an as alias name of the column. Executed now, and yes, it's asking me the name. So let me pass the name SAP A for H schema dot snwd underscore sales order table and execute it. No, it's not working. So there is some problem. You can see here from SAP A4H there is no space. It is not recognizing it. So we have to introduce a space here after from. This space was missing. So you see from, and it was concatenating the table name immediately, which was giving an error. So I had put in space now, re-execute, and then let's come back because we are preparing a dynamic query here. Okay. So now let's come back SAP A4H dot snwd underscore so execute. You can see the output of your number of records from the table are popping out. Hope this answer your question, Weber. So now you can pass any table name as part of your procedure input parameter, and you're going to get the output as your number of rows in that table. So let me pass my BPA table just to verify there was something called 48 records or something. Yeah, you can see it's giving me the correct results. So this is how you can prepare a dynamic SQL statement using execute immediate clause in SQL script. Let me copy this also and put it over here. Example 2 dynamic SQL statements. By the way, I was not planning to teach this, but you made me teach this because this is what we don't typically use much in real time. Okay, but still in some cases you may have a chance, like in this case you have to prepare a dynamic statement, so you got to use that. Okay, moving on, now we will look at the arrays. What is the concept for array in SQL script? So what is an array? It's a single column table. Now one important thing to note that we cannot use array in the signature of procedure. So arrays are like one dimensional structure to hold multiple values of same type. So this is pretty apparent, and we all know that what is a single dimension structure. It's an array. So if you look at an array, how it's going to look like is like this. This is exactly your array is. Now, can anybody tell me in JavaScript, what we learned in Fiori, what is that we have? How do we represent an array in JavaScript? Anybody? Which symbol do we use to represent? Perfect answer, Shilpa. We use a bracket symbol to indicate array in JavaScript in Fiori. What is the starting index for an array in JavaScript? Anybody? What is the starting index of an array in JavaScript? In Fiori chapters, we have learned it, right? 0. But unlike that, in SQL, the starting index for your array always starts with 1. Is that it doesn't start with 0. So this is an important point to note. Here the index starts with 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Like this, you will have the index for your item. Again, it's based on index. You can access any item based on its index. So you can just use it like this. Okay. So this is exactly how it looks like. This is how it looks like. That's your array, and in this you will have array item. So how do you declare? What's the syntax to create an array in SQL script? It's very simple. You have to put declare statement, your array name, and you all know that it's not case sensitive, so I can put capital D also, doesn't matter. Then you have to put variable type, whether it is an integer, var character, n var date, whatever array you want to create, and a keyword called array. Okay, and then you can also assign default values to an array by writing array, and then you can put value 1, value 2, and so on. You can keep putting the values inside the array, so corresponding index gets created automatically whenever you create it. Okay, so corresponding index gets created automatically if you're inserting these items. So let's have a look at an example in a procedure with this very simple array. You can access an item of an array very simple, just the way you access in JavaScript. We can access items of array using indexes, and remember index always starts with 1 in an array. Okay, so array name bracket 1 gives first item of the array. Okay, so if you want to use multiple variety of data types, suppose an internal table kind of structure, what will you use in SQL script? Anybody? If you want to build a multi-dimension structure like this in SQL script, what will you use? Anybody? In last class we talked about it. Table type. Perfect answer, Shilpa. So we will be using table types if we want a multi-dimension structure. So array is a single column table actually. So this table type we already saw it in the last unit, how to create table type dynamically on fly, how to also create a table type statically. You can also make use of database tables if you want to refer to multi-dimension structure. Okay, DB table or a table type. We will see some examples around the table type in today's class. Okay, let's go ahead and look at some examples for array. So what I'll do is I'll just come back and just say remove the drop statement and say prepare array, and just not having any parameters as such, because remember in procedure you cannot hard code parameters of an array. Okay, it is not possible. Now suppose I want to create a simple array here. So what I will do is I say declare array, and I want to create it with a tiny integer. So tiny int array, okay, equals to, I want to immediately assign values, and this is what I'm showing that showing this because I want to prove that it's not case sensitive. So array word, whether you write in capital letter or you write in small letter, it is not case sensitive. So I just created a tiny array. Now I also create an index array, let's say, and then it's a type integer array, and it's a 1 and 2. So just two items. So there is basically an array of 3 items inside, another array with 2 items inside. So what I will do is I want to now cross assign the values. So I want to basically assign the first item of my array with the second item. So let me put here 10 and 20, let's say. So I want to just basically take value from one array and put it in another array. So this value, I want to take it and put it in this array at index number 1. So how do we do it? Pretty simple. We just say array index 1 equals to my index array, and then I can assign second index item to like this. So this is possible. And now what you can do is you can say select. You can actually create an output parameter, out value, or say val integer, and then I can assign this val equals to the value of this first array first index. Okay, I just did this, execute it. Identifier must be declared index array. Okay, it is saying index array, it should be declared. Okay, you can see index array, I'm using it. So whenever you're using, you have to put a smiley. I forgot to put a smiley. Here also you're using it, you're not assigning. So whenever you're doing an assignment, you don't need a smiley. But when you're using something, you need a smiley. So that's what I put it. Execute once again. Got executed. Let's try to call this array. What will be the output? Can anybody guess? What will be the output when I run this particular program? Very simple program. What will be the output when I run the procedure? It's going to be 20, because now the value of this array, index array with second index 20, will get assigned to first item of first array, which becomes now 20. So the output will be 20. Let's execute it. So come back and say call this array with one output parameter, execute it, and there you go. You can see value is 20. So that's a very basic example for having an array. But we're going to use an array now for the purpose of cursor. So let's use an array truly in system for doing some real operations. So basic of an array, very simple example. And now I'm going to use example 4 as basic cursor. So last time I was able to show you what is a cursor, and we also discussed that typically there are steps for using a cursor. It's basically assignment, or it's a point to the database query. It's always assigned to a database query, and behind the scenes the cursor would load the data into itself from the database table based on the query. It's basically a point to a query, and then you can go through the data one by one. So first you have to declare the cursor. This just declares the query. Second, you have to open the cursor. The moment you open the cursor, it fire the query to the database table and pulls the data, and then you will say fetch. This is going to fetch the data from database. So there was a mistake which I did in this query, in this syntax. Open cursor is not open cursor, it's just open cursor name. This was the mistake why it was not working. Okay, so declare cursor name. uh, if you want to give parameters, you can do it. I will show you example with parameters for your select query. Open cursor name, no open cursor name, it's just open cursor name. Fetch cursor into record. That is what will be the simplest example for fetching data from cursor. So there's a question, that array you just defined as a single column. Array is always single column, Charu. That's what exactly I explained. Array is not multi-column. If you want a multi-column array, you have to use table type in SQL Script. Okay, there is no multi-column. Table type which we discussed in the last chapter are multi-column arrays, which we can use multiple variety also. But array is always single column and always one single type you have to give. In this example, if you see, we just given an array type as tiny integer or an integer array. It always and always have one column. Okay, one column always. Clear? So if you want to pull the data from database table for a single column, you will use an array. Okay, which we will see now in a minute after we do some examples in cursor. So let me just go ahead to the system and show you very simple example with the cursor. I'm just going to fetch product IDs from our product table, okay, using cursor technique. So let's go to the system and just write a procedure, simple cursor, and no output as such. Right now out of this procedure I'm not putting any out. I'm just gonna fetch the data from cursor. So, or maybe I just put an out parameter called product ID as an out parameter, varchar 20. Okay, and just put it as PID maybe, so that you will know the difference. Okay, you will know the difference that PID is our parameter. So I will now follow the cursor rule. So simple cursor, first we have to declare cursor. So declare cursor C1 for our select query name. Okay, so select product ID from SAP A4H schema SNWD underscore product table. Okay, very simple. This select query I'm writing, and this select query is going to read the data from product table, all the product IDs. Okay, it will get you all the product IDs. So in database table, you let's say have 5,000 products. It's going to fetch all of them and going to assign it to the cursor. But this query is not yet submitted to database. This is just a declaration of cursor. Okay, next we will do the fire the query to DB, which is done using open C1, open cursor. Last time pay, the mistake which I did is I taught you syntax open cursor, cursor name. Okay, this was a wrong syntax, that's why it didn't work. It is just open and your cursor name. This will submit the query to the database. Once the query is submitted to the database, data is fetched. After fetching the data, you have to assign your fetched records. So here it will fetch multiple records and only one column. Okay, so your output will look like something of this sort. So you will get product ID and all the products like this, you will get it. Now this is your cursor. Okay, now to loop over this record, can you process all the records of an internal table in ABAP directly? Anybody? Can you process all the records of an internal table in ABAP in one shot? Is it possible to process all records in internal table in ABAP? No, it is not. You have to use something called a read statement to read a single record, or you have to use a loop at internal table into work area, correct? So that's what exactly you're gonna do happen here. This is basically now your internal table. Now you need a work area which can loop over this internal table line by line. Okay, so first I will show you a read table statement, equivalent read table statement here. Okay, so what we will do is we will fetch by default the first record of your cursor into a variable. So we will read table itab into work area index 1. This is equivalent to fetch c1, fetch cursor name into work area. Okay, and this work area we can declare now on the top, which is equivalent to product id, because it is reading all the product IDs. So my work area is definitely pointer to this product ID. So it should be of type my product ID. So declare work area varchar 20. Okay, so that's your read table. So basically, whenever you want to process records line by line, that's when you're gonna use cursors in SQL script. Okay, that's when you're going to use cursors in SQL script. I will take analytical view related question towards the end of the session. Okay, so please park your question related to analytical view right now. We will take it towards the end. So here I declared the work area, the line type for cursor, in which we can fetch. So this will only read the first record, guys. Okay, now let me assign this work area to my product ID. Okay, so I will assign this work area to my product ID. So PID is my export parameter, equals to my work area. So I will run this procedure. So now you will see it will just give us one product ID as an output when I run the procedure. So let me just go ahead and do that. So I call the procedure simple cursor question mark execute, and you will see it has given me only one product as an output. Okay, only one product as an output it has given me. So if I will again call one more fetch, okay, c1 into work area 1, and I say PID 2 equals to work area 1. Okay, so or PID 1 equals to work area. So I have to now declare these guys also. So declare work area 1 varchar 20, and then also declare here the PID 1 as an output parameter, and then just assign it like this. So now it is going to assign read table second index. I tab into work area index 2. Hope you are able to relate how the cursor is working. So I execute it. Oops, I have to drop the procedure first. And execute it. It drops it and recreates it. I come back and I execute it. Oops, I have two parameters now. So put two question marks, of course, to show the output on the console. And you can see there are two products which have been read now and being displayed on the UI. But that's not truly we want in the system, right? We always want to process records of all the records of an internal table typically, correct? So that's what we will do now. Let me just copy this procedure as a simple procedure example so that you understood this. Copy this, put it here as a basic cursor example to show you how the cursor works. By the way, this is commented code. Hyphen hyphen is the prefix which you can use for any commented code. Like in ABAP we have double quote, or uh, star star. Star is the beginning character for commented code. This is a commented code actually just for explanation purpose in SQL script. Now what we will do next is we are going to access this data into a this same thing, but first of all I'll show you the parameters, how to use cursor with parameters. So now I want products to be read based on the category of the product. So what I will do is I will take input parameter from user, tell me the product category, and as varchar 20, let's say. So user will now tell me the product category that I will take as an input parameter, and same value I will now pass to my cursor. So when I'm defining the cursor, here I have to define the parameter. So say I cat varchar 20. So this is how you define an input parameter for the cursor. Now this input parameter goes in, and here you can write it, use it in the where clause. So where category of the product is your smiley and parameter. Basically you're using the parameter now. So that's your query. Okay, select product ID from product table where category is equals to this value, and this value you are getting as an input parameter from the cursor. Okay, but when you are opening the cursor here, open cursor, you can pass the value which is supplied by user, this cat here. Again use smiley because you are using the variable, and you pass it over here. So what happens when you run the procedure? So user will pass a value in this cat parameter. This will be passed over here to the cursor. It finally goes in the icat parameter. From the icat parameter, it is supplied to the query. It pulls the data for all the products matching the category, and then finally you do read table index 1. Accordingly, that particular product will be assigned to the output. So last time output was HT 1000 and 1001. We don't know which product category they belongs to, but let me give a product category and see the output now. Okay, let's drop and recreate, of course. So this is a cursor with parameter. Come back, and just this time I have an input parameter called category of the product. So third parameter, so 3 parameter, 1 input and 2 output, question mark. To test it, execute. It's gonna prompt me now a parameter value to be passed, and I say flat screen, and let me execute. No output, which means there is no product category with flat screen. Maybe I will pass notebooks and execute, and you can see it gave me 2 products which were actually belonging to notebook. Let's try something else. uh, I don't know the categories information, but that's okay, I can find it quickly. I select it, execute SQL console, and fire a query on my product table to see what are all the categories they have. Or I can also say distinct from my product table, get me the distinct category values, and it tells me all the categories. You can see these are all the categories I have. So maybe I will put software, execute, and you can see HT1100. Now this is different, and 1101. These 2 products belongs to software category. So that's how you can pass parameter to a cursor. Okay, so let's now use this cursor concept and assign the output value to an array. Basically we want to now loop at internal table which is having 1 column, and then produce the final output in the output. Okay, so I copy this right now and put it here as an example. Example 5. So these small examples are going to be helpful, very helpful for you to build the large procedure, which we will see at the end. Our ultimate goal is to not to play around with the SQL script. To Our ultimate goal is to produce something productive, and that productive is nothing but implementation of our OIA scenario. That is what we want ultimately to be achieved. So cursor with parameters. And then let's move on to the next example. So what we will do next is we will be preparing a array parameter basically. So we will be preparing an array, and in that array we're going to put all the values. Okay, but before we move on, let's also understand how do you do a loop at internal table concept with respect to cursor output. So for that to happen, we have to use something called a for loop. Now, another disadvantage of using cursor, if you forget to close it, the memory remains allocated in the database. Okay, so then it is keep on consuming the CPU memory, and over a period of time, this is harmful for you because so much of memory of CPU is, not not really utilized because of your cursor. So you always make sure that you have to open the cursor and close cursor. That is something which you need to keep it in mind. But if you use something called a looping mechanism to loop over the cursor gets opened automatically and it gets closed automatically when you do a loop. Okay, so what you typically do is you will use a loop for a cursor for data fetch. This will automatically open and close the cursor. So you should always use a loop when it comes to coming a cursor. What is the syntax for using the loop? So you should use for your work area. Okay, for work area as your cursor name, do, and then your coding and do. Sorry, and for. It's a for loop. So this is what will loop over all the records which are there inside the cursor line by line, and it will also close the cursor by default. Okay, it will also close the cursor by default, so you don't need to take care of closing the cursor yourself. This will be done doing the closing of cursor automatically. Okay, so how can you check if a cursor is closed or not? So HANA SQL script provides ready-made functions to check if cursor is closed or not. So there is a function called is closed, and in this, if you pass the cursor name, it will return an output and tell you whether cursor has been closed or not. Okay, this is how you can check if the cursor has been closed or not successfully. Okay, so let us go ahead and experience this. So what I will do next is I will take all the data from this cursor and push it inside an array. Okay, I will push it inside an array. So what I will do is I'll come here, same cursor I will use, and now instead of this fetch one by one, I will do a loop at iTab. Okay, so for that I will start a for loop. For my work area is nothing but a varchar of 20. Okay, varchar of 20, I'm going to loop this. So the syntax was for this as your cursor name, and you should start the loop do and for, sorry. So now it will loop over all the records of this one by one, and inside this you can write some code. So what I will do now inside this, basically I will create a array, and in that array I'm going to insert all the records. Okay, so let me define an array of varchar. So I say all products and array varchar 20 array. Okay, I've defined an array. Now inside this array I'm going to insert the records one by one, but I don't know the index. So when you are looping a cursor, there is a ready-made variable available called row count, which will define the index, or which will tell you the index of it. Now another thing important which I told you, that you don't need to take care of opening and closing the cursor in case of a loop. So you no need to open here. You can just say for this as C1. This statement, first time when it comes executes, it will open the cursor. So that time itself you have to pass your parameter value. Okay, and then it will loop, and within this now you have to insert the data to the array. So array index, and now you cannot hard code it. It has to be according to the number of rows which are there in the cursor. So every loop will return you the row count. So you should use C1 row count property, which is a ready-made property when the cursor is looping, and then you can assign your value of the product. Okay, so now you can assign your product ID, which is there in the work area. That's it. Is that clear to everybody? What did we do here? We are just reading the product ID, and then we are assigning it here to the value. Now remember here, this acts truly like a work area. This acts truly like a work area. So you have to use work area name dot your field name which you are selected from database. So you have to use work area dot product ID. Now this will add this will start a loop over all the records which has been written one by one in the work area, which gets created automatically, and this work area will loop over all the records, and then those records will be assigned to your array parameter. So you've created an array parameter here which will have all the records assigned to it. Is that clear to everybody? What are we doing here? So your data records and then the value gets assigned to it. Clear? So let's go ahead and see this in action. What happens? I think we have not declared this work area. We have declared it actually. I think it should work with this directly. Let me try this. If this works, I will execute it. You can see here invalid column name work area. So I have to give the column name actually. So this work area declaration is no more required. The work area also gets created automatically when you put for loop on this work area, and then dot product underscore ID. That's it. This is the right syntax. Execute. You don't have to even declare a work area now. You see it got executed. Let's run it. Of course, you will not see any output now, guys. Okay. You will not see any output on the screen because we are pushing the data to our array. What I will do for you is I'll just quickly assign the data now from this array to your output parameters. So PID and PID1 equals to my all prods item. First as item I'm assigning PID2 all prods. Second item I'm assigning re-execute. Okay, sorry, I'm using them, so smiley is important because I'm referring the variable. Correct, you're right. And let's go ahead and execute this example. So once again, same procedure I'm calling with one input and two output parameters. Execute it. This time it will collect all the data into an array which we created. Okay, so let's come here, and now what I'm going to do is I'll just put the value software and execute. Well, I can see your response over here. Now you will ask a question, Anubhav, what if I want to return this whole data as an output? But you remember the limitation with an array, which I told you in the last session? We cannot use array in the signature of the procedure, not as an input nor an output parameter. But you can use table, guys. Correct? You can use table as an output parameter. So what I will do is let me declare a table as an, so let me just first take this and put it in our notepad so you will not forget this example with a simple array. So these small examples make your foundation strong so that you will understand what are all we do in OIA scenario, because I'm going to use some of these concepts in OIA scenario. So you get used to these data types, table, array, conversion functions, SQL statements, declarations, looping, uh, then condition operators, if condition, stuff like that. You will get used to all these things so that it won't be so difficult for you to build the OIA scenario. So these small example makes you an expert in SQL script. Okay, now example 6, what did we do in this example? We just got the data in an array. Step by step I'm doing. So first I wrote a very simple cursor, got one record in output parameter. Second, we did push it into all the records in an array, single column table. And next what we will do is we're gonna return a table parameter as an output. So let's declare a table parameter as an output. So what I will do is I will come here and create a table parameter as an output. So I say output parameter PID. Now this becomes a table. So I use table, and then I will use here, let's say, prod ID as my output parameter, varchar of 20. So that becomes my table parameter, guys. Okay, now how do you convert an array data to a table parameter? So there is a ready-made function available in SQL script called unnest function. An unnest function will help you to convert an array to a table. Okay, so what is unnest function in SQL script? You will see this is being used at a lot of places in standard SQL script which SAP delivers. Unnest function. Okay, what is unnest function? Unnest function converts one or many arrays into a table. So as you can see in this example, let me just draw a simple example. Suppose what happens is you have two arrays. This is one array, this is another array, and you want to join these two array and return finally a table. Okay, a table of this like. How can you do this? So you have array 1 and you have an array 2, and you want to return a table, and these array to be joined together as a column of your table. Okay, that can be done using unnest function in SQL script. Okay, so what is the syntax for unnest function in SQL script? So it can be used to convert one or many array into a table. Okay, so input to this will be an array, output will be a table. So the result table includes a row for each element of the array. So whatever elements you have in array 1, 2, 3, 4, that becomes a record in the returning table. Okay, syntax for this is you have to have a table variable as an output equals to unnest function, and then inside this unnest function you will be putting your array name. Since you are referring, you have to put a smiley. Okay, array variable, and then it is not necessary that your array column name matches with the column name of your table. Correct, it is not necessary that your array column name matches with the column name in the table. If it matches, very good, but if it doesn't, then you have to also do an aliasing. You have to use as, and then here you have to use column names. You can specify as many number of arrays in this unnest function and as many number of columns accordingly in the as alias name. Let's see an example, very simple example in this case. So what is the column name in my array? So this is my column, so this is my array, and you see here it selects product ID, but you see my table has prod ID as the column name. It doesn't match. So whatever my array is having, it is not matching with the what is my table having. My table column name is prod ID. So what I will do is when I'm doing unnest function, I will do an aliasing. It's always recommended to do an aliasing. So what we will do is we will say PID equals to unnest, and then I will put my array name. So my array is all prods, smiley of course, and as prod ID. Is that statement clear to everybody? How to convert an array to a table? This is very important because we cannot use array directly in the signature of procedure as a in or out parameters. That's the reason we have to convert an array to a table, and for that reason unnest function is used. I have done some machine learning algorithm implementation using SQL script in HANA, and we had used this unnest function extensively in SAP HANA to implement machine learning algorithms. It was very important for me to return a table as an output parameter from my procedure because I cannot return an array, and my data which has come from my Twitter tables or machine learning tables was in array format. So I had used this ns function in those machine learning algorithm implementations. Okay, there are too many questions coming right now in the chat window. I am not looking at them right now. Let me close the give a logical close to the topic. I will take up your questions one by one. Okay, so let's test it now. We're going to see as an output finally as a product table with all the products coming as an output parameter for us because we have assigned now output of an array to our table using unnest function. Let's execute it. It creates the procedure successfully, and I'm just going to execute my procedure going back. So you're going to see now all the products of that particular category as an output parameter. You have just two parameters now, one input category, one output table. Let's execute it and see the response. So I come here and say software and just execute, and you can see there are 8 software products available in my system thanks to a nest function. Okay, you can also do some more. So you can also create another cursor with another property. You can have it inside. In fact, here itself I want to also get the name of the the price of the product. So I have now 2 columns as an output parameter. Okay, so this work area which I'm creating is having all the 2 columns, and I will declare another array, all prices, as let's say integer, array. Okay, and then I will say all prices of my C1, every row count, that is the index, assign the value of price of the product to this array. And when I'm doing unnest, I can see comma, my next array, all prices, and then I just also declare this column in my table, my price and integer. That's my table column, another table column, and then I can just mask it with that name. So you see, unnest function is now taking two array as an input parameter. It's going to give you a table joining these two arrays. Okay, execute it. I'm lucky all my procedures are executing without any syntax error today. Execute it, and let's see software. Execute once again, and voila, you can see the price of each software product is being displayed as an output parameter in the table. Very important function. 100% interview question. What is unnest function in SQL script? 100% interview question. 100% interview question, guys, because people who are working on SQL script using this extensively it is used. Okay, so let's take this
Anubhav,
example.
I have a question.
Yes, Charu.
So, array is single column. Then I didn't understand the purpose because you can use a table with single column, right? And now that you're joining two arrays to form a table with two
Because I'm
columns, you can
showcasing you
use.
examples how to use these things in SQL script. There is no problem
But
at
then I
all.
didn't get
You
the
can
purpose
actually,
of array.
you don't need to do all this extra. This is over engineering. What typically we do is we say my PID equals to select product ID as PID, comma, price as my price from SNWD, sorry, schema name PD, where category is equals to my input variable. That's it. All this below thing is not at all required. So for me to explain you concepts, I have to take some example, and just that's what exactly I did here. There is no purpose of this entire piece of code at all. This is not required at all. This will produce the same output as what we were getting earlier. You don't need all these things, not at all. Nothing is required actually. This is much faster. This is better. But just in case, if you get a chance, or if you see a real used case, or if you truly see a ready-made procedure, okay, which is written by your colleague in certain way, how will you maintain it? You should know concepts. So it is not just about producing a simple output. It is all about learning concept. So for that learning of concept, I have to take example. That's the reason I did it. Let me run this procedure. It's going to produce the same output. But before that, let me check if I had put it the unnest function code here, so that you don't miss it out. I didn't put example. I had copied it, by the way. Unnest function. Okay. Let me paste it. So this was the unnest function. Same example can be done in an easy way in form of a table like this. And this is actually faster as compared to the other one, because there you have an imperative logic. Okay. And this is not at all an imperative logic. You remember the discussion, there are two types of logic. One is declarative, one is imperative. This is pure data flow. And this is what typically we do in real time. Okay. Same output will be produced. Execute it. There is a type mismatch as PID. So you see this PID is not matching. So there is a different from attribute name PID. Select product ID as PID. Okay, it is prod underscore ID. Okay, sorry. In my table, guys, it's prod underscore ID. The first column is prod underscore ID. Execute it. And you see works. Let's come back and execute your procedure. You're going to see the same output, no difference at all. If I just type software, execute, see the same output, much faster also. But just to showcase the examples, small examples, I've prepared these examples for you guys. Okay, just to showcase you the power or different statements in SQL script. There can be many ways to achieve same output, but how will you know if some SQL script is written by a developer in your company and your management asks you to work on it? What will you do if you don't even know what is cursor, what is an array, how to transfer array content to a table? What will you do? So as a trainer, it's my duty to teach you all the syntaxes. Okay, so don't go by just example, understand the concept of these statements. Okay, let's move on now. Next, after the concept of an array and cursor, what we also can check is if our cursor is closed or not. So can you please add the code to notepad? Yeah, sure, let me just do that. Sample example with, and this is, by the way, not the imperative logic, this is your declarative logic example, the data flow. I will show you so many declarative logic examples to showcase the parallelization concept in SAP HANA. Okay, we will see some example in just some time. Okay, next example, how can I check if my cursor is closed? So let's go on the top and I will retake the example for my cursor where I was opening and closing the cursor just to show you how can you um, check if the cursor is been closed or not. So let's just come here and you see after fetching this, I forgot to close the cursor. You see I opened the cursor, both the places I forgot to close the cursor. So what I want is I want to check here if the cursor has been closed. So I say is closed C1 if my cursor has been closed or not. Of course I have to put, I guess, C1 here because I'm using it. Then, and if else, so if my cursor is not closed, throw a user defined exception. So anybody, what is the syntax to throw a user defined exception? Anybody, last class we saw that. What is the syntax or what is the statement you will use to throw a user defined exceptions in SQL script? Anybody, do you remember who practiced last class? Nobody. Signal statement, SQL error code 10,000. Let's execute it. If my cursor is not closed, it is going to throw a SQL error. This is a custom exception I'm throwing now. If it is closed, fine. Else, I'm going to throw this. So you see, I didn't close the cursor after fetch. So let's run this simple cursor example one more time. Okay, there's an error near then. If this, then nothing else. Why it's giving me an error in if statement? It should not ideally, right? Is closed C1, then maybe I will just do the assignment here in this, some piece of code I'll write, execute now. Incorrect syntax. That's what the if condition truly. Why it's giving me an error? If this, do I need to have a space here? No, it's not accepting my code. If condition, it's not working. If is closed. No. So you see this one is working fine. So this one should also work. There is some other problem. If is closed, I think C1 I should not use with this smiley. Is closed. Let me just put here a condition, logical condition, and see if this one works. Yeah, this one works, guys. So there's a problem here with this code. Okay, it's not accepting is close. I think this will not work here with HANA 1.0. The is close statement or is close function is not available here in this HANA 1.0 server. Okay, you will not find this particular function in 1.0. I think it's there in 2.0, that's why it's not working. So in 2.0 you can check if the cursor is closed or not using is closed function, which has been introduced by SAP. So let me remove that. I will put it in the PPT. So last time I showed you some examples like insert, dot insert for a table. It was not working with 1.0. Similarly, is closed is a function, is a ready-made function in HANA to check if cursor is closed or not. Warning again, works with HANA 2.0. Okay, so that's about arrays and tables. Before we move to our imperative logic and other declarative logic examples, let's talk about our next type of containers. If you remember, there were three types of containers which I explained: procedures, anonymous block. Unfortunately, we also were not able to use anonymous blocks in our HANA studio because this is a production system and these parameters are not supported. Parameters with anonymous blocks are not supported in production directly. So we tried same thing with procedures. You can actually try all the procedure code with anonymous block if you don't want to create something in database. And then now we will move on to user defined functions. Less used concept. Majorly we use procedures because there are advantages. We will also look at difference between UDFs and procedures in a minute. Let's move on to user defined functions. So what is a function? It's just like procedure. It has in and out parameters, but it cannot have an in out parameter. Okay, now there is an advantage of using functions which we will see it in a minute, but let's first create a very simple function. Now again, talking user defined functions are of two types. In interview this question will also come. This is also a certification question for ABAP on HANA. What are all the different types of user defined functions available in SAP HANA? So user defined functions, in short way they are also known as UDF, user defined function. There are two types of user defined functions. So first is scalar UDF, second is called table UDF. And as the name suggests, exactly, you are thinking correct. Scalar UDF returns you a scalar parameter, means a parameter with single variable. Table UDF returns you a table. Okay, it returns you a table. Okay, table UDF returns always a table, at least one table. Scalar UDF returns you scalar parameters. It cannot return you a table. Okay, now another interesting point to note that a function always have one return value. Okay, it always have one return value. A function always have one return value, and this is true in case of a table UDF. A table UDF always returns one value, and that value is a table actually. So let's go to the system, and I want to now write a scalar UDF which will return you the list of suppliers available in the system. SAP system, list of all the suppliers available in SAP system I want to return. So which table we have supplier data in our EPM model? It's BPA table. Let's look at the BPA table. Execute it. Sorry, there is no category field. Sorry, I have to just say star. Get me all the records of BPA table. And now you will see there is a BP role parameter. 01 is for supplier. Sorry, 01 is for customer. 02 is for supplier. Any BP in this BPA table having business BP role as 02, it's a supplier. He is not a customer. Any business partner in this table with BP role 01 is a customer. So this is an identifier whether it's a supplier or customer. 02 is for suppliers, and I want to return basically the company name, the BP ID, and the currency code. Company name, BP ID, currency code for all the suppliers in the system. So let's create a user defined function for that. So syntax remains same. Create procedure instead of create procedure, write create function. Get suppliers, and I can say returns. This is part of syntax, returns table, and we're gonna return a table bp underscore id. Let's say varchar 32, and then I will return the company name as again varchar 80 characters, and then I will also return currency code in which they are dealing, and it's a varchar of 4. That's a table which my this this is a table UDF, table user defined function. It is returning one table, exactly one table as an output. Okay, so this as begin, end. You see no difference is except procedure. We have a function and it always returns one table. It cannot return more than one parameter. And this gives a unique advantage to functions over procedures, which I will show you in a minute. Okay, so now I will say I'm going to return select bp underscore id, company name, currency code from snwd underscore bpa table, where what was the field name bp underscore role equals to 02. All the suppliers return me as an output. So that's what it is returning. You can see there's a return statement which automatically maps your output of your query to this table parameters. Remember their names are same. That's when the mapping takes place. I just activate this UDF, got activated. Let's execute this UDF here in the system. So get supplier, no parameters, simple UDF without any parameters, executed. Oops, some problem, invalid name function or procedure. Okay, I have to put a question mark because there's a return parameter it is giving me. Oops, create function get suppliers. Why it's not able to call it get suppliers? It's correct only. It got successfully created as well. Why am I not able to call it get suppliers? Call get suppliers returns me a table. This got created successfully, guys, but it's not giving me any result. What I will do is I will try to call it in a procedure. Okay, so let me create a procedure around it, and we are going to call this to produce the output from this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a procedure, and in that procedure I am going to call it and return the value. So what I will do is I'll say create procedure, which is consume UDF, and then I'm just going to have an output parameter with suppliers, and then it's going to be a table. So let's better create a table type, guys. So I will say create type ty underscore suppliers as type this table as as table, and then we have bp underscore id as varchar 30, company name as varchar 80, currency code as varchar 4, and that's my table type. Execute it, a table type gets created. Sorry, create type this, create type this as table. That's the syntax. Let's go and check the syntax for creating table. Did I miss something? How to create a table? I usually forget the syntax because I don't use creation of table much. Create type this as table and all the columns one by one. Create type ty suppliers as table. Okay. Create type ty suppliers as table. BP ID, company name, currency code. This is all okay. This is all okay. Why it's giving me an error? Syntax error here, guys. Create table type or create type name as table and all the columns we are putting here. Sorry guys, I'm putting an as here, not required. Execute it. Yes, your table type gets created. Ty suppliers is a table type now you can use in any procedures. It's a global table type which has been created. So let's create a procedure now. Create procedure, call UDF, and then just return out my supplier list as my table type as begin end, and I'm just going to call my function. So how do you call the function? So just use your parameter equals to get suppliers. That's it. Execute it. Invalid name of function procedure. Guys, it's not allowing me to call our procedure here. Same error is coming here the way it was coming in the console. I think we are missing definitely something. Call. Do I need to put the schema name before the procedure name? I guess yes. Before the function name, I have to put my schema name, I guess. That's the reason why am I not able to call. What I will do is I will try to call it in a SQL query. So I just say select star from get suppliers, execute it. Yes, that one works. You can see I can call a function in a SQL script. You cannot do this in a procedure. That's the first disadvantage of using functions. You can call function using SQL script or any other techniques, but you cannot use call statement. That's a disadvantage. So let me note down the advantage and disadvantage between procedures and functions. Very important interview question. Procedure, how they are called, they are different in nature. How they are consumed, they are different. So let's note down the differences between procedures and functions. So what is the first difference? A procedure is invoked by call statement. But on the other side, a function cannot be called by a call function. A function is always consumed by select query or imperative statements. Okay, that's when the functions are invoked. This becomes an advantage also for function. A function can be called in SQL query directly, but your procedure cannot be. You cannot call procedure in SQL script, SQL query. This is a disadvantage of using procedure. So if you want a reusable logic to be always invoked in a query, in middle of a query, you can go ahead with a function, not a procedure. These are all the first two differences between procedure and functions. Okay. Now, what are all the other differences between procedure and function? Now, procedures can have in and out parameter, but functions cannot. Functions cannot have bidirectional parameters. Not possible. What is not possible? An in and out parameter. So in procedure, we have in, out, and in out parameter. So can have in out parameter, which is bidirectional in procedure, but in function we cannot have. These are all interview questions, guys. The first interview question could be difference between procedures and functions in SAP HANA SQL script, or in fact in any database. If you look at, you would find these differences between procedure and script. So can anybody tell me a function which you typically use on day-to-day life in SQL scripts? Anybody? We use it almost. In fact, today when we started our class today, we used a function. What did we use today when we started our class today? Count. Remember, we used count to count the number of records. What is it? It's a ready-made function in database. What is these count, mean, max, average? What are all they called? Can anybody tell me? What are all these things called together? Count, mean, max, average, aggregate functions. Absolutely. They are actually functions. And that's why you can consume them in SQL scripts. But did you ever heard people calling them aggregation procedures? No, they are not procedures, they are functions. There are ready-made functions in DB. Some of them are called aggregate functions. There are also functions like string functions, expression functions. We will see some of them in upcoming chapter when we will write our OIA scenario. I'm going to use some function like, round off to round the data. I will use some different functions for formatting our data. I will use functions like ready to use functions basically. So these are inbuilt functions. Absolutely, these are all inbuilt functions in SAP HANA database. We will be using some of the functions in our upcoming chapter, like bool c function. We have it in left function. We have to truncate some values from left side. We have conversion functions. We have data conversion function, let's say to a date, to a timestamp. We have conversion functions for a date value to a particular time zone. There are different functions, ready-made functions available in database, which you can consume directly in the query. Okay, so these ready-made functions, conversion functions, which are available in the HANA database. So these are all this is where real power of function comes into picture. Okay, but when it comes to procedures, there are not much use of procedures, or we cannot use procedure in a query itself actually. Okay, now procedures are database specific. There are also ready-made procedures, but they are database specific. Since we can't use procedure in select queries, they are not used practically, relatively higher than functions, because functions can be used typically in a database in SQL queries. That's why you see people when they are writing queries, they use a lot of functions, but procedures not allowed to be used in query at all. That's another difference between procedures and functions. What else? So what happens is a function can be marked deterministic if it returns the same result for a given input. Okay, so this is something very specific feature to SAP HANA. So if you have, let's say, a function which typically multiply a value with pi, let's say calculate area. So you have a function calculate area, pi r square. So you multiply pi, multiply by square of your radius. So that case, you know what will be the output. You can predict the output of a function. So these functions can be marked as deterministic functions. Okay, and these can be used actually in your real programming knowledge as a standard functions. You cannot put, you cannot assign value. You cannot assign, direct assignment is not supported to from a procedure. So direct assignment of output from procedure to scalar parameter is not supported. But when it comes to functions, it is possible. So you can say variable name equals to UDF function, pass the parameter, whatever output comes, that gets assigned to your scalar variable. It's possible, but remember there's a catch. This is also a certification question. From which release onwards SAP HANA supports assignment of function output to scalar parameter? So from SAP HANA SP8 onwards, 0 HANA point 1.0 SP8 onwards, in SQL script we can assign output of UDF to a scalar variable. I will show you that in a minute. Let me write a simple function which calculate radius, and this time I'm going to do it a scalar function, not a table function. Scalar UDF, sorry. Let's go ahead and create a scalar UDF which receives a scalar value, returns a scalar value, single value, not a table. Okay, so calculate area. I'm going to create a function called calculate area. Let me go ahead and do that. So we'll come back here and just write a function. So we will just take this function in our statements so you guys can try this. Table UDF example. And how you call them, you cannot call it using call statement. You have to use it, select star from your select query. You have to use it actually to call the function. Okay, this is what you have to use. In the select query you can call it actually. Example 9 is a scalar UDF. I will write a scalar UDF to calculate area of a circle. Okay, so let me do that. Get circle area, and this time it's gonna have an input parameter. So I'm gonna decide an input parameter for my function. So I will say radius, and by default all the parameters which you are writing here is input parameter. You don't mark it in and out, just say input parameter as integer, let's say, and this one now returns a scalar value out. Okay, so returns a scalar value as an output. Let's say returns is a decimal, so let's say area, returns an area which is of type decimal. Okay, so let's calculate this. We can just say pi r square. So value of pi, anybody quickly? Value of pi, mathematics, 3.14. Perfect, 3.14 multiply by radius square. So that's it. Execute it. You will have it created. Syntax error in as statement. Sorry, here this is an as statement, incorrect usage. And return expression not supported, feature not supported, return expression. I just put all this inside this here, and actually we have to assign value to this area like this. This is correct. Okay, so output is assigned now, and radius is used here with smiley. Run it. Got created successfully. Let's call this procedure now, sorry, function now. So I call it in a SQL query, select star from this and pass the radius as, let's say, 2. This will give me the area of a circle. Execute it. Invalid name of get circle area. Why? Oh, sorry, this is a scalar one, guys, so I have to use this from dummy. This is not a table function. A table function is used in the from clause, but a scalar variable function, since it returns a scalar value, it has to be used in the in at place of columns actually. Okay, so you call this and you will see the output is 12.56. That's the area of the circle with radius 2. Okay, so that's how you use a scalar function. Now you can assign this value directly to a scalar parameter. Let me show that. So I will write now call UDF procedure which has an input parameter as radius, and it's of type integer. And what I will do is I will create an output parameter area of type decimal up to 2 decimal places, so 10 comma 2, and then let's say area is equals to, and my function name get circle area, and I will pass this radius, spelling is incorrect over here. Okay, let's pass this and execute this procedure, create this procedure. Basically procedure got created, and you see this is what is supported from HANA 1.0 SP8 onwards. Calling a UDF and assigning value directly to the scalar parameter. Okay, so that's what exactly your calling and assigning a value to it works. So I will take this, put it in this scalar UDF, and consuming the scalar UDF in a procedure like this. And let's call this procedure now, which is using this. And I can actually call procedure using call statement, pass my radius value as question mark and question mark. It'll ask me the radius value and it calculates and gives me the value area of the circle. 2 is the radius, execute, and you can see 12.6 is 56 is the output from scalar UDF. So that's about functions in SAP HANA, UDF, user defined functions. Hope this is clear. Table UDFs and scalar UDFs. So what is the difference between table and scalar UDF? Table UDF returns a table as an output. Scalar UDF returns a scalar value as an output. Whenever you use scalar UDF, it is used in column list, but when you use a table scalar, it can be used in from instead of table name while the calling. Okay. So hope that is clear to everybody. Now there's an interesting point here which somebody have made. Anubhav, as per our initial plan, we were supposed to complete course by 17 December, but so glad that you're taking so much of time to explain each concept, not thinking about the time. I am so sorry. My initial plan was really to complete it, concise it in 30 hours, but I could not resist myself to showcase these concepts to you because I felt if I directly start with the procedure with SQL script without teaching you SQL script, it becomes difficult for you guys to understand. So I'm still trying as much as possible concise I can make it, but our course will actually extend to about 50 hours. My initial plan was to adjust it in 30 hours, but I cannot do this to you guys. I'm so sorry. I cannot do this to you. I cannot actually uh, skip things which will harm you. Okay, so that's, I'm so sorry, I cannot complete it on time. So if you guys have some personal commitments during month of January and because of this course you're not able to do it, I request you to go ahead with those commitments and look back the videos later point of time, because anyways I'm going to post the videos. Okay, so I cannot do that. I'm so sorry, Shilpa, for that. So it's my passion, I would like to cover as much as knowledge I can deliver to you, so it will be helpful to you. I can directly go ahead and code a SQL procedure, okay, copy paste directly and show you the output. Okay, see, this is how it gives you the output, but it's not going to help you. Okay, great. So with that, we are completed with scalar UDFs and hopefully the imperative logic in SQL script. We saw a lot of examples, simple, complex SQL examples. The problem is I don't typically write these examples. These examples I practiced it years back, and that's why I find so much of difficulties sometimes while compiling these examples, because we typically don't do this. This is just for training purpose. But what we typically do is we use true SQL script techniques now and apply it to code our OIA scenario. So before coding the OIA scenario, last thing which I want to show is our logic, which is based on not imperative logic. So imperative logic is more like your ifs and buts, but now we will use SQL script for declarative logic. So let's go ahead and write very simple procedure with declarative logic example. So last example for today, and then we will jump to directly the OIA scenario. Okay. So after this, actually, we don't left out with too much of topics. So once the SQL script is covered, we will move quickly to our OIA scenario with procedures. Same code will work with calculation view with SQL script. Same code will work because as calculation view with SQL script is ultimately a SQL script. Whether you code inside a procedure or you code it outside a procedure in a view. And then we will look at how to consume procedure from ABAP. So there are three techniques using ADBC. Second technique will be using direct call using proxy. Just like we created a proxy view, we can create a proxy class and call it. And third will be EMDPs. And then we will move to CDS view, which will take about like 2 classes, 4 hours for CDS view. And last May we will create a OVP Fiori app consuming the CDS view using annotations. And that will be the end of our course. Yes, there is one more topic, ALV, fuzzy search and smart search. these topics will be also in one class. So easily I would say yes, CE function, I will discuss CE function today itself. It will get completed today itself. So all in all, 2 classes on CDS view, 1 class on these advanced topics like ALV, fuzzy search, and then one class will be on the Fiori app 4, and then 1 class, 2 classes more on OIA scenario, complete coding of OIA scenario. It would take one more class actually. Tomorrow's class I think we'll be able to complete OIA. So five more classes it will take in total. It may also take 6. I cannot guarantee, but I will not hide anything from you guys. I will show you real things, real metal in the system. Otherwise I'm not going to leave you. Okay. Example number 10. In this case now we will use pure logic, which is declarative logic in SQL script. So declarative logic is not coding any ifs and buts. Okay. No ifs and buts, pure SQL statement which HANA can truly parallelize. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a used case. So what is the use case here? What is the requirement from the real business? So what I want, my manager comes to me one day and says, print all the products and their suppliers, list of products and their suppliers, which sold more than the quantity I will tell. So my manager will tell me a random quantity, let's say 500. Now I have to prepare a procedure where input parameter is going to be quantity, and I need to pull all the products and their suppliers which is sold more than the quantity which my manager tells me. Okay. Also print the count of sales orders on those products. So just have to print the count of sales orders in which these products have been consumed. Okay. So that's what is the final requirement. Hope you all understood. So if you plan this requirement, it's pretty simple. You got to create a black box. Let me truly create a black box. And what will be there as an input to this black box? You need to look at here. This is how you design. This is how you plan your requirement. So what is the input? What is the output? You have to see this. So there will be one input, which is the quantity which my manager gives me. What will be the output? Print all the products and their suppliers. So you have to have products, you have to have suppliers, and you have to also have sales orders which are using these products. Okay. So that's what exactly we will be having as an output from the black box. This black box is nothing but your procedure. You are going to code a procedure. Now remember, HANA applies parallelization in what are all the cases. So we already talked about it. When can HANA truly do parallelization? The rules of the game, here it is. Local scalar parameters and variables are used in containers. Okay. Read write procedures statements are executed. Imperative logic, the moment you have if loop case statement, it comes out of parallel mode. The moment you have a SQL statement not assigned to a variable, it comes out of parallel mode. The moment you have a DML statement which does an insert or update to database, it comes out of parallel mode. So you have to write a procedure by keeping these things in mind. If possible, try to avoid using imperative logic and try to build a procedure for your requirement which doesn't use the imperative logic. Okay. So how will we do that? So let's come back and do this. I will come to your point, Nag. Just hold on for some time. I will take up all your questions, guys, whatever you posted towards the end. Let me not break the flow. Okay. So come back. Let's write a procedure. So this time we're going to create a procedure. And this is not at all going to be an imperative logic. This is going to be a declarative logic. So I will say get products. So in parameter is going to be the quantity, what my manager is going to tell me. So there will be a max quantity operator, which is an integer. Then output is going to be a products and suppliers. And of course, sales order count, we can add it later. So right now I will go with products and suppliers. We can also add the sales orders later point of time to it. Okay, let me simply go with products and suppliers. So I will say output will be a table type of products. So let me create a table type for product also. So I will come here and I say create type, table type, TT, products as table, table as, and then what are all I am going to return. I'm going to return the product ID from this as varchar 30, and then I will also return maybe the uh, SID of the product, which is product technical ID, GUID node key basically. So node key, or let's say actual PID, product ID, which is a primary key, which is a var binary. Okay, that's my product table type. Then next I am going to create a type for supplier who supplied me these products. You can see suppliers is also should be in your output as per the requirement. So here the output is going to be the list of suppliers. Okay, basically the name of the companies who are supplying these products. So I can say company name as varchar 80. This is going to be the list of suppliers. So not procedure right now. Let's create two table types and see it in the system. Execute it. An error. Create type this incorrect syntax near table. So create type this as table. I think we have to use. I missed the syntax once again. Got created. You can see both the tables type got created. You can come and check in the schema. So expand it and we will see in SAP A4H schema we will have it. So here we come and let's look at procedure section. You will see two table types, TT products and TT suppliers will be available for us. Recently created ones. You can see TT products and TT suppliers. Both have been created. Now I'm going to use uh, pure logic, which is declarative logic. I'm not going to use any ifs and buts. So let's go ahead and now create our procedure. So let's focus on first returning product and suppliers, not the count of orders. Okay, we will do the orders later. First do a plain vanilla case step by step. So what did we do? We first step, we created the table types. So example 10 is little bigger one. I'm breaking it down into pieces. Step 1, create table types for output. Step 2, create procedure with parameters. Let's come here, create procedure, and then it's gonna have procedure get prods. Let's say get products, and I will have an in parameter where my manager will tell me the quantity, maximum quantity integer, and then I will have an out parameter with the list of products, and the type of this is TT products. This is how you use a table type. Okay, then you also have another output parameter with, let's say, suppliers, TT suppliers. Hope this is clear. You can additionally also use this, guys. You remember the syntax? This is one way to declare an output table. Another is you can refer a table type available in HANA. These are all the two techniques. You guys have it. Okay, so that's about creating procedure. So now reads SQL data makes it possible for HANA that it's a read-only procedure. Okay, very important syntax guide. Reads SQL data. Very important. This will tell SAP HANA that I am not using any imperative logic inside. I am purely using declarative logic. You can go ahead and apply parallelization. I will show you writing some queries now, which will give you some indication what kind of parallelization it can do. In fact, you will only tell me with the knowledge which you gain, which are all the statements which gets executed in parallel by SAP HANA. Okay, so there comes reads SQL data. You can also put language. SQL Script. Okay, that's my language. Default schema SAP A4H in the double quotes. Okay, and then as begin my procedure, end my procedure, and let's write the code inside step by step. So first step, we will get all the products from the system based on the product ID or based on the quantity where sum of total sold quantity was greater than the value which my manager has supplied. Okay, so let's get select. What I will get is list of products underscore id from snwd schema name sap a4h dot snwd underscore pd table. But this table contains my product information. These products should be pulled based on the information available in my sales order table. So my sales order table has sold quantity information. Product table doesn't have it. Okay, so you need to apply a join over here with your sales order table and then apply an aggregation based on product ID where the quantity is more than something what my manager supplies here. So apply an inner join now between these two tables with snwd sap a4h schema snwd underscore sales order table on my join condition now. So this I am using as my product table PD. On this I am using as SO. And what is the join condition? My product ID table node key matches with my sales order table. Uh, there is a product GUID. Let's check in sales order table how they are connected. So I just say select star from SN SAP A4H dot SNWD sales order table, and we will find a column which has the product information connecting it. So if you scroll right, you will see there is a buyer GUID, there is a node GUID, and you will also see actually somewhere the product GUID where it is telling that which product. Actually it's there in items table, guys, not even sales order table. It's there in sales order items table. SO item, I think. So in this table you have it. What was the table name? Control space snwd sales order underscore I, or yes, it's underscore I. This is the table which is actually having the product ID. So you got to pull it from here. Okay. So now what you will do is you will say get me the sales orders. But in fact, guys, believe me, this table doesn't have even quantity sold. If you see, this has the amount of the sales. It has the net amount, tax amount, and currency. It doesn't have the quantity, how much quantity was sold in the sales order actually. It doesn't have this information. That's there in another table, which is called SO underscore SL table. This has the quantity sold in the sales order for a given product. In this table, if you come, you can see here is the quantity. See, this is the quantity which was sold in the particular sales order. Okay, is that clear? So you have to first join and get the products, get the product IDs from the table where where particular quantity was sold more than the quantity which manager supplies. So I actually have to now select the product GUID from between a relationship between this table and my sales order table. So let me just show you. My sales order table has product GUID. Sales order item table has product GUID actually. So here if you come, you will see, you can see product GUID. So this is again a technical key in my items table. This will tell me which product was sold. And the another table which I was showing you, which was the table SL, it has the quantity sold. So these two tables have the required information which I needs. So one has the product GUID and one has the quantity sold. So I need to join these two tables and get the product GUID where the sold quantity was greater than supplied quantity. So how do you do that? Let's join this table here in a select clause. So directly we can try it in the console, then we can put it inside the procedure. So what I will say, get me the product GUID from my table, which is this table, as SN inner join. My next table was items table. So sales order items table. These two tables I'm joining. So this table has quantity, this table has product GUID. Okay. This as my SO table, sales order items table. On join condition, what is the join condition? My sales order table dot node key is equals to SN dot parent key. That is the join condition. Let's pull the records and see the output of this now. Click on execute and you can see it's giving you the product ID. You can also actually get quantity and you can say execute and it tells you what is the product, how much it was sold. Another order, this is next order, this is the product, this much it is sold. This product, this much it is sold. This product, this much it is sold. Now if I want each product, how much total that product is sold, I can do a group by. Per product, do a group by and give me summation of total quantity which were sold. So now it will tell me in all my orders, this particular product sold 14,000 units of this product were sold in total in all the orders. For this product, these many units were sold in all the products. So that's your first query, which just gives you the product ID based on the sum of quantity. Now my condition says, my manager says, I want products only where the sold quantity is greater than what I tell you. So my manager is going to tell me that. So what I will do is use this aggregation in the having clause here, having this is greater than whatever my manager says. So I want all the products for which the sold quantity is more than 15,000. Get me only those products. Execute this query and you'll see only these products has sold quantity more than 15,000. If I just make it little more, 20,000, then you will see these products. Remember the count 25. Let me increase the limit more. 25 was the last number. And now you see only 9 products are there for which sold quantity is more than 25,000 unit. See, remember the uh, analytical queries which we were earlier doing with modeling. We were actually trying to find out which is the most sold product in my company. Same thing now you're writing with logic, with SQL queries. So this is your first query which just gives you the technical ID of your products more than the sold quantity. This is your first query. Take this output in a variable. This is step number 1. So I declare a variable LT sold prod. Now see guys, I have not written a declare statement here. Declare this. I didn't do it, not required. This is an implicit declaration of your table variable. Okay, this is an implicit declaration in SAP HANA SQL script. Implicit declaration of table variable. It automatically creates an internal table based on what your query is returning. So it will create a table with product ID. Is that clear to everybody? Now here this number should change to my input values with a smiley. First query. This will get you all the products which were sold based on quantity provided. First query. Now this query, it has the product GUID. With this product GUID, I can easily select my products. So what I will do is, I'll say my products output parameter is equals to select product underscore ID. Let's look at our table type. So I will right click on our product table type and open its definition to just show you what all the columns it has. My product table, what all the columns it has. So let me just do that. You see product underscore ID and PID. which is the technical ID. So I will use product underscore ID and PID. So product underscore ID, which is anyways fine, and node key as PID from SN SAP A4H schema SNWD underscore PD table where product where node key in whatever value here it has produced. Is that clear to everybody? Whatever you produce in the previous query, you are passing to the input of next query. Okay, and here you have to again use a select query. Select whatever what you produce is product GUID from your variable. Your previous variable is supplied here. Is this clear to everybody? What am I doing here? Output of one query is given to the input of next query. Okay, so now output of this is given here, input of this. That gives you the list of products. Let's run this. The first phase, it is going to return us all the products. So I will right now remove suppliers. Say run this procedure. Step by step we will build. Execute. It got executed. Let's run the procedure and pass a quantity and see the list of the products which are coming. So call procedure name and I will pass quantity and I will get products. Execute. And now I will pass quantity as 25,000. My manager will pass this. He will get the list of products. These are all the products, 9 products. You remember these 9 products. Now you see the IDs are coming. This is the technical ID which is joining table. This is the primary key basically at the table level, the technical ID. This is the actual product ID, what you're getting now. These products have been sold more than 25,000 quantity. Now basically my manager don't understand this, neither this. My manager want me to tell the names of the product. Now the names of the product are not available in this table, they are available in texts table. So I have to again use this data, hit my texts table and produce the name for my manager. But before that I need to enhance my table time for the product names. So I can do that later, but let me now produce the supplier information. So let's produce the supplier information. So for supplier information to be produced, we need to go to BPA table. Okay, BPA table, and for that you also need to know who is the supplier of the product. So that we have not selected here actually. So if you look at your product table data, let's go and check. I just search for select star from SNWD product table, execute it. You will see here the list of products and their supplier IDs will also be there. If I scroll right, you can see supplier GUID is there. This is again the primary key for the supplier table, business partner table. So this supplier GUID I need to select. So let me just go back. I need to select instead of node key. Now I will select supplier GUID and then use this products supplier GUID to read all the supplier information. Select company name from schema SNWD BPA table where node key for supplier in, and my subquery select PID from my output of the previous query, and that gives me the list of suppliers. And let me just pass here comma output parameter suppliers TT suppliers, and let's drop the procedure and recreate. Execute. Now you will get also the names of the supplier who's supplying these products, guys. Let's run the procedure one more time. You have got a third parameter, question mark again. So first you will pass the quantity, you will get the name of products and the suppliers who are the most valuable suppliers for your company. So now I say 25,000 once again and execute. You get all the products which sold the most, and these are all the supplying companies. 9 suppliers you've got for 9 products, and these are all the 9 products you have. These are all the 9 suppliers you have, which are the most important supplier for your company, who has supplied you the most sold products. So if your company decides to quit some supplier, it should not be one of these supplier. Critical important business information your manager wanted to derive out of it, which he has asked you to develop. For you it's a code, but for your manager or his manager, it's a business. And the business here is to decide who is the most important supplier for my company, because these are the supplier who are supplying me the products which are selling the most in the market. Correct? Great. So can anybody tell me which are all the queries which will run in parallel here? Can you guess which query will run in parallel? So let's say this is Q1, then based on sold products, get the product and supplier data. And then next, based on product supplier GUID, get supplier names. None of the query, your right answer, because if you see all the queries are independent on each other. Output of this query is given to the input of this query here, and whatever this query produce is given here to this query. So all are dependent on each other. So there is no parallelization in this case. All three runs in a sequence because output of one is given to next. Now let's move on our example and complete it. What my manager also want is orders. Okay, so my manager also want orders. So what I will do is I will now get the count of orders based on the products ordered. So actually what I will also do here is this products now I will not keep it this one. I will keep another product, let's say LT products, and to this product what I'm having here, I will assign it later. So I will just select this as PID or SID, and then I will also get node key as PID product ID. So I have now 3 columns, and this table will be created automatically, and whatever this table is giving, I'm actually giving it as an input to my products. Equal to select only the product ID and PID from my LT products. Okay, so whatever I produced here, this I am just sending it out to my output variable products, because I also need the node key, guys. Node key of the product is also required for me to do some calculations. That's why I am assigning it to another temporary variable, and this temporary variable only 2 values I'm sending it to the output, and then I will also use this guy over here. Okay, now can anybody tell me which queries will run in parallel? This is your Q1, this is your Q2, this is your Q3, and this is your Q4. Can anybody tell me which are all the queries which will run in parallel by SAP HANA? Can you guess which query will run in parallel in SAP HANA? Perfect answer. Charu has given it answer correctly. Q3 and Q4. Let's look at the data flow graph once again. So now you are catching how the data flow is important for us. You see, output of first query is given to second, so it cannot run. Now output of second query is given to third and fourth together. So third and fourth are independent of each other. Definitely HANA can run them in parallel. Correct? Now write another query to get sales order counts based on products sold. So sales order counts, I can say select count star from based on product ID, of course. So I will say product underscore. Let me just check the sales order items table. What is the product ID field there? So SNWD underscore sales order item table. There we have a product ID field, guys. So I go to items table, scroll right, and you will see here product GUID is the field. Okay, so I will come here and say select product GUID, count star from the table, SNWD underscore sales order item table, group by product ID, having product GUID in select only the product GUIDs which have been sold based on the quantity. So select, now from here we will select PID, which is the product ID GUID from my internal table, and that I'm supplying to now counting the number of line items. Okay, counting the number of line items, how many times these products were sold. Actually, this is what it will give me, the order counts, how many times there was an order for these products. That's what I'm counting now with this subquery, and that is my order count. For each product it will tell me how many times the product was sold. So product GUID and count star, so that's my order count. Actually, you can ignore this guy, you can actually ignore this guy, this will just give you the count. If you want to keep it, you can keep it, no problem. That gives you the order count per product. Let's add it also in the output parameter. So I'll just go ahead and add this in the output parameter, and this time I will create a table at runtime. So table, and in this I have two parameters. One is the node key, which is product GUID as n binary var binary, and then I have the count, and let me just put it as CNT, and CNT will be an integer. That gives me the order count, CNT as integer. Okay, so now even query 5 runs in parallel, because you see this query 5 input is coming from query 2. Query 2 gives LT products, that is supplied to query 5. Query 3 and 4 results are not supplied to query 5. This also runs in parallel in SAP HANA. Let's execute it. Hopefully this should work. Let's go back. We have now 3 output parameters and 1 input parameter, which is quantity. And let me execute it and just pass the quantity here, 25,000. Execute it. You're going to see 3 output prepared. First output gives you the count, number of times each product was sold. You see, these many orders were there for the particular product. 14,000, 14 orders were there for this product. 14,000 orders were there. Now it is not the quantity, guys. Okay, it is the number of orders. You see, these are all the number of orders per product. This is the company name who are the most valuable supplier. There's something wrong now. And these are all the products which sold the most based on the quantity supplied by manager. What is wrong with this company name? Let's go and check quickly. Why my company name data is not coming now? So company name SNWD BPA node key in this. Actually we replaced it LT products, and this should be SID, not PID. SID means supplier ID. That was the problem. You will also get your company name. That's your perfect procedure. So this is how you implement procedures when it is all about reading the data. So HANA can parallelize all the processing what you have in your procedure. Execute it. You will see suppliers, number of times each product was ordered, suppliers, and also which are all the product which sold the most in my company. In one single procedure gives you this much of information for your business. This is how you code using SQL script. Is that clear to everybody with this POC example? Now, if you also want the names of the product, not the GUIDs of the product, you can actually do that. So what you do is prepare a relation, prepare another table. So just get LT product names equals to select, and there is another table in database which gives you product names from SNWD text table. This gives you all the product names, guys. Okay, if you execute, it gives you all the product names, node key, parent key, text, you can get, you see the text you are getting. So parent key is what you can use, and this parent key matches with another field in your product table, and here you will get text for language English. So language hard code is E, and text is what you need to read based on parent key, and there is a relation this table which you have it with product table, which we already did it, also used it in our attribute view. So let me go to PD, and here you have something called description GUID, DESC GUID with parent key if you match. So this as PD inner join SNWD text table as text txt on PD dot what was the field, I forgot it, equals to txt dot parent key where language is E, and we just want to read texts, and I want to read node key. I want to read node key from product table. It was description GUID, DESC GUID. I want to read node key from first table. I want to read text from my texts table, and I want to also read the product ID. So I want to read product ID also. Let's run this query. You're going to get product ID. You're going to get information invalid text column. I think it's just text column. And you can see now here you are getting, guys, all the description of the products with the product ID and their technical key. That's my third table. Here I can put it my product text table, LT texts table, that gives me the text of all the product. And finally, when I'm assigning into my products now, here instead of this product ID, I can have my table type with the text into it. So basically I can, when I'm writing this query, I can just read the texts and send it. So I can say select product ID comma texts as PID from my texts table where product underscore ID in the previous result. This becomes a subquery. This is getting so complex. Maybe for some of you, when you write it down now, it will become easy. You got to just go ahead and try it out. Okay. In same case in orders, we can also do it, but let me just run this and show you at least your first result, which was giving you the technical ID of the products, will now give you the name. Now there's an incorrect syntax. Product ID from, this is because of our new code. Select product ID text as PID from LT text where product ID in, select product ID from LT products. This is correct only. Why there's a, okay, this guy is the culprit. I remove it unnecessarily. I put it, run it. Now you're not gonna get the technical names. You're gonna get really the true names of the products which have sold. So let's call the procedure one more time with 3 parameters into it. Call my procedure name. First parameter is input quantity, products, suppliers, and orders. Execute. Let's give quantity 25,000 one more time and run it. And now you will get the product names. Oops, I'm not getting product names. Why? In PID still I am getting the product ID. In PID ideally I should have got the product text. I had assigned that to my products. What is missed? Product ID text as PID from LT text table in where product ID in this. Why it's not giving me text? There is some problem. There is some problem. It's taking inner query result. Maybe I will quickly change my table type, guys. TT products, we will change it to adapt it to return the texts. Okay, let me just quickly do that. So I will change our table type definition so that it can give me the product text rather than product ID. So this is our table type definition. I'll drop it and recreate it. So drop TT products Just in a minute I will do it. Along with PID, I also want text, which is a varchar, say 200 characters. Execute. It is not recreating. Some problem. Cannot use duplicate user defined type TD products. Drop table. Drop type, I guess. I have to drop it. Yes, it got dropped, recreated. Let's come back. And now I think it's going to do the magic for us. Text, was it text I put? Yes, I put text as the type. So I'm going to select product ID and text, run the procedure one more time. And now we have a problem. Return type mismatch. Products, product ID, text and varchar. Okay, I got it. It is also you have to return the PID, which is node key as PID. So my return type structure is not matching with table type. That's why it was giving me an error. So I had made the structure correct now. Let's run one more time. Pass here 25,000. Execute it. Now my manager will be happy with the results because you can see these are all the most sold products in terms of text. It is coming to my manager, not just the product ID. You got to try this example in SQL Script. You got to get your hands dirty into the code if you truly want results like this. So create as much as queries you can. HANA is going to run at them very, very fast because you have done a code push down to HANA database. That's what HANA database is built for. But never do a star. You see, I just put my column names in every single query. Output of one query given to input of next query. So HANA will do optimization of these queries automatically because you've not written a single declarative logic, single imperative logic here. No ifs and buts. All is declarative logic. Is that clear to everybody? How example for declarative logic, the used case. Let me put this entire set of query here. Saved it. So this was a tough class indeed. So much of concepts, so much of bombarding of concepts on you. Please try this. Please try this. You will definitely get doubts. Come back to me. Now it's all you over to you guys for your questions. Is there any system variable? Hold on for logo language. We need to try this. Let me check. So there's a question here. Is there any system variable to check logo language? Yes, there has to be. So what we can typically do in SAP HANA, we have something called context. Okay. A context will help you to identify what is the current state. Okay. Context will help you to identify what is the current state. So that you can get it using session context and the values. So let me just show you. Select session context and I can just see what is the current client from dummy. Run this. This will give me the current client. Execute it. You see current client in which I logged in SAP HANA is 001. This should also give me language. Let me try. No, this is not the right parameter. I will also show you guys the another parameter. So first is the client parameter. Let me show you the another parameter. Session context. And then we will put application user and execute it. So this will give you the current user in SAP HANA. You see, username is Anubhav, who is connected to HANA DB. Now there is another session context variable. Let me just explore it on Google. I'll ask HANA session context and it will tell me all the available session context variables. So definitely there has to be something for language as well. Let me quickly check that. So you have application. Okay, so I can try this and this will give me, I guess, all the list of settings available in the session context. Let me try this. So let me first put this guy into our notepad so you guys can remember and try this. Reading session context in SAP HANA example 11. This will be helpful for us to find out a lot of useful values. Let me try this one now. execute, and you see it's okay. Session context is SAP HANA Studio. I want basically for something login language. Let me check session context. There has to be something, guys, which will give me the login current login language of the user. Session context. Let me try. It's locale underscore SAP. Okay, let me try this. Locale underscore SAP. And that's it. Run it. There you have your answer. Hope this is what you expect, Anshuman. Yeah. So that will give me the login language in SAP S4, sorry, in SAP HANA. Okay, let me just put it over here. This is very useful for us at runtime to determine the current state with which you logged in, because many times you're firing query on a cross client table and you want to just check what is the current client, based on that retrieve the record. This is will be useful for us in OIA scenario in next class, which we will do it. Next question from El Hadi. Can I write SQL script in HANA in Eclipse instead of S4 HANA? Yes, provided your database administrator gives you the access to HANA DB. If they give you the access for underlying S4 HANA DB, you can. Otherwise, we have AMDP, ABAP Managed Data Procedures. That's where you will truly write your SQL queries, your SQL script in AMDP, ABAP Managed Data Procedures. In basically, it's an ABAP method in which we write SQL code, SQL script code. Hope you all know now what is AMDP. Writing the SQL script code in ABAP. That's what ABAP on HANA. You can write all your code in ABAP managed data procedure and run that ABAP managed data procedure. It will run it on HANA. And the code what you're writing is all SQL script. In fact, I will show you that in upcoming chapter. I will copy paste this OIA code which we will create directly in an MDP and run it from ABAP. Okay, run it from ABAP. Next question, how to combine all results in a single output? Why do you want to do it? My question to you, why do you want to do it, Nag? And if you want to do it, you can create a table type, of course, for combining all the result. Correct? You can do a table type. So create a table type, and in that table type, you combine all the result. I will show you that in the next chapter. We will build our OIA scenario using SQL script. And there you remember what are all the fields we want. We want the company name, whose product was sold. We want number of average days since when the invoice is open. Also, we want the gross amount, and in the converted gross amount and the currency, and all that in a single table I will prepare and send you. Okay, is that clear? We will do that in our next chapter. Okay, this is what we will do in our next unit, which is tomorrow's class. I will show you building whole of that scenario. Which is the fastest, OpenSQL or SQL script or CDS? It depends. Yet it depends. Definitely SQL script and CDS both are faster as compared to OpenSQL, because they will be doing code push down. Code push down is done using SQL script and CDS. Like I already explained the power of SAP HANA. If you do code push down, you have these options, CDS and AMDPs, which is again SQL based operation. So OpenSQL definitely not that powerful. SQL script and CDS. Again, it depends what you need. If you just need simplified data model, go with CDS. If you want complex calculation to be done, like passing output of one to another input and do some calculation, ifs, buts, for loop and all stuff like that, you cannot do that in CDS view. You cannot run a for loop in CDS view. Okay, it's not possible. So you should go with SQL script in that case. If you want to write pure imperative logic, it is not possible with CDS view. CDS view is more like creating semantically rich data models. It's more like writing read purpose. Okay, writing or doing code push down for read purpose. But if you want to do more like processing, typical NetWeaver or application layer processing, you have to go with SQL script. So it depends on application to application. After learning all three, you will be able to judge it better. So at least now you can judge with based on SQL, OpenSQL. SQL script is better because you can now write all your imperative logic directly into HANA database because they run on HANA DB. Absolutely. Further questions before we close today's class. Do customer prefer GUI or only Fiori with HANA DB? In SAP S4 HANA, if you see, there is no SAP GUI. It's all in browser. It's all browser based. Yes, there is SAP GUI called HTML GUI that also runs in browser in SAP S4 HANA. So customers slowly have to move to SAP new user experience, which is based on Fiori. These old technologies are going out of market slowly. Next question, I have created an analytical view with parameters. I have created a calculation view by referring that analytical view calculation view doesn't have any importing parameter, but analytical view has importing parameter mandatory. May I know how to write SQL query to fetch the data by passing in importing parameter? We will see that in the next class, how to call a calculation view from SQL script. I will show you that, and how to pass parameter to your calculation view from SQL script. We will see that in the next class now. Hope that time your question will be answered. But remember, if your underlying data model, which is analytical view, has an import parameter, on top you created a calculation view, that parameter you have to also pass via you have to basically pass that because underlying data model needs it. Okay, so we will see that how to consume calculation view with parameters in SQL script in upcoming chapter. Okay, how to utilize SQL script to do complex transformation in models, any use case. We will see that currency conversion will be done tomorrow's class in OIA model when I will implement using SQL script. I will show you how to do currency conversion using SQL script. We will see that in next chapter. One session we were creating filter but could not give multiple values. That time we discussed that it can be done using SQL script, also complex joins. Creating filter but could not give multiple values. Yes, so that's what exactly happening here. You can use an in operator in SQL script. Here, see, you are using in operator. What does this mean? You are saying give me company names from business partner table where node key in, and this will give you multiple values. This query is giving you multiple product IDs actually. Sorry, multiple supplier IDs here. And based on that, you're applying a filter. Where condition is what? It's a filter. Filter on the records. And it will fetch those company names based on the product IDs. Sorry, based on the supplier IDs. That's a filter only. Please keep the full recording including these questions. Yes, I will. This query can be embedded with the information view. No, you can go ahead and use this query with the calculation view, scripted calculation view. Remember, there are two types of calculation view. One is calculation view with the modeling, with the graphical model, another with calculation view with scripting. You can do this with scripted calculation view actually. That's why I spent so much of time SQL script, guys, because you can there are multiple usage of SQL script. You can write procedures, you can write user defined functions, you can test anonymous blocks, you can do it. Same SQL script can be applied in a calculation view with scripted calculation views as calculation views. Next, you can use it with AMDPs. Next, you can call a procedure created in SQL script from ABAP system using ABAP proxy, EDBC, or ABAP managed data procedure. That's why I spent so much of time on SQL scripts, because there are multiple applications of SQL script. Okay. Yes, entire model is SQL script actually. This is actually SQL script only. This, when HANA runs this, it converts it to a data graph, data model, like I explained it here. In this I have explained what is a data graph, how the parallelization works. So this is what is happening. You see the same example which I took on that day. Query 1, 2, 3, 4. They are all passing output of one to another input. That's exactly happening here. Parallelization. This is all converts to a data flow graph.
Anubhav, I have a question.
Yeah.
So earlier we learned about creating attribute, analytical, and calculation views. So on those views, can we write some SQL scripts on top of those views where we cannot achieve certain transformations or filters or joins? You know, I mean, I was assuming that on if once
Okay,
we
let's take
create
an
these views,
example of an
like right,
analytical view. In analytical view,
yeah,
we cannot use unions. Correct?
okay,
Union is not supported. Union all. These are all not supported in analytical view. So what is the option we have? We either we go with calculation view or we go with scripted view here. So here you can do a union all. In fact, with CDS views, you can do union. Okay, I will show you that how to apply union with CDS views. So all these things can be done with these advanced concepts actually. But you need to bring me the used case so that I can show it to you. Get me the used case. I think
Right,
OIA used
right.
case, when you apply in all cases, it covers majority of the things. In tomorrow's class, you will see we will do lot of conversions. We will convert, we will calculate date difference, we will calculate even second difference. What is the difference between seconds? Okay,
Okay.
and then we can calculate the difference in days, we can calculate average, we can do a round off, decimal round off, round up, we can do truncation. All that we'll do in next class. Yeah, I will show you doing all that in next class. Hope that time it will be clear. So till now we just covered SQL script basics, how SQL script works and operators and different techniques. We didn't use SQL script by far. We will apply now what we learned in OIA scenario. We will code OIA scenario tomorrow. So that time you will understand how it works, how you apply it. Really, how do you use SQL script? Okay. Okay, sorry for extending another 30 minutes. With that, it's a wrap on today's class. See you tomorrow. We will code entire OIA scenario in ABAP on HANA. I know it's getting so much deep into the code, but I cannot avoid it. You need to become an expert, so you need to truly get into it and understand every bit of it. This is huge. And that's why, I do trainings, because I want to get deep. I don't want to just do a copy paste and show the output. I want to get deep into the training, explain you every single bit of it from where it is coming, so that you get as much as you can from me. Okay, thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Have a nice day and goodbye. We will cover HANA CDS views, don't worry. We'll That's what our main goal is, CDS views. We will also cover CDS view annotations, and using those annotations we will build the Fiori app. We will consume CDS view in building the Fiori app, an OVP based app with donut chart, with a bar chart, and with a smart table. I'm going to show you all three examples possible with CDS view, because it's used also extensively in SAP S4 HANA. Okay, thank you, goodbye.